Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys watch random movies on the internet and then talk about them. And with me, as always, is the amazing, the incredible, the Miss Marple to my Nancy Drew, Kyle Mulford, and I'm Noah Saturn. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing good, solving all the crimes.
Yes. You solve all the British crimes, I'll solve all the American crimes.
And together we'll solve the world?
Yes. And this is one of our mini episodes, sometimes maxi episodes because they can be long, called What You Watchin', where this one we just talk about what we're watching. So Kyle, what you watching?
Well, this won't go long because of me, because I only watched like 8 movies.
How could you?
I know, kind of a slow 2 weeks here. But starting off though, on HBO Max I watched Malignant, the new James Wan film.
I also watched this on HBO Max.
This one started out like just kind of, I was like, okay, I'm into this. This is kind of weird and creepy, like this what's in my house, what am I seeing? And then the last half hour of this movie just goes batshit crazy, and I loved it.
And I loved it too. Should we go into spoiler territory?
Yeah, because
we should.
I'm going to go straight in and say this had a major basket case vibe to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm all for that. There's definitely an influence there, and I just love that James Wan just kind of embraced the crazy and just went all out at the end.
Yeah, this is kind of his trashiest film, so to speak.
It really did feel like, I know I compared it to Basket Case, but it just kind of, especially the last half of it, just felt like an 80s horror exploitation movie.
Yeah, so it's about this woman. I forget what the main character's name is.
I don't even remember. It's a woman who is witnessing murders. Like when she goes to sleep,
she sees she has these nasty dreams, but then it's like she's like witnessing these murders, like she's there, and then it turns out they actually happen, and then you're not sure, how much of this is real, how much is just in her head,
and it turns out it's all in her head.
Yes, and not the way that you think.
Yeah, I don't want to go. I mean, I think we've spoiled enough. I don't want to spoil too much more because I will recommend this movie.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
It doesn't necessarily go where you think it's going, but I think the best way to enjoy it is just hop on and go along for the ride. Yeah, embrace the trash and just kind of revel in it with the rest of us.
Most definitely. And it's so enjoyable. I was glad to see Juan do a movie like this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
some movies you make for the studio, some movies you make for yourself.
Exactly. And of course, that's streaming on HBO Max because that's one of those simultaneous releases.
Mm-hmm.
Then on Netflix, I watched a movie called About Time from 2013, and I absolutely adore this movie. It is so good. This was written and directed by Richard Curtis. And he's the one who I still have never seen Love Actually, but I think he wrote and directed that. This is a romance movie, but it involves time travel. He also wrote one of my favorite romance movies called Notting Hill.
Mm-hmm.
This one is about a guy who turns 21 around New Year's, and they're at a party, and then his dad comes to him and says, we've got a long family tradition that like this thing with our family that all of the men can travel back in time by going into a dark place and just thinking about the time they want to travel to. And then like the decisions you make again will affect if you go back into the future. So you can either do that or you can, just like go back and then relive it or whatever. And it's one of those where like, when I first watched this movie, I'd watch it. It's got Donald Gleason, and then the love interest is Rachel McAdams. And Donald Gleason's father is Bill Nighy, and he is wonderful in this film. There's a lot of points where it could really turn to the cliches where he makes selfish decisions or there's miscommunication or this or that. But every decision that he makes, even if it messes things up, we're all done for reasons that he wanted to help somebody, and it just makes this movie really sweet and just kind of a feel good. You like, and there are some points where like, oh, it's very sad and all this stuff, but it's just like, oh no, this is just a good guy He's in love with this girl, and this girl is in love with him, and there's a time travel element. And it's a really sweet movie.
And he goes back in time to give himself a sports almanac.
Yes, and he bets on the Cubs to win.
Uh-huh.
But this is a high recommend for me. I absolutely love this film. And then on Canopy, I watched The Day of the Dolphin from 1973.
Nice.
Have you heard of this one?
I have seen it.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yeah.
George C. Scott. This is a Mike Nichols film. And yes, that Mike Nichols, who directed The Birdcage and The Graduate. George C. Scott is doing these dolphin experiments on an island, and he's being funded by this, foundation. And he's teaching these animals or these dolphins to talk. And like, it's really funny because the animals will the dolphins will open their mouths and be like, "Bow, pa, love, pa." It's so great. There's a couple of small cameos in here. Paul Sorvino is in it, and Edward Herman is in it. It's just a small part.
Huh.
But it turns out that like the foundation is really like having him do these things because they want to use this dolphin to assassinate the president. And yes, you heard that correctly. So this movie is so bizarre, and I loved it.
I just imagine like a dolphin holding the sniper rifle on a rooftop.
Oh, it was such a weird anomaly of a film. I like to know that it was Mike Nichols directing George C. Scott, and it's about talking dolphins that are used in an assassination plot.
Don't they like strap a bomb to the dolphin or something?
They do.
Yes.
It's a bizarre movie. That's playing on Canopy right now.
That sounds like something the Penguin would come up with. Does sound like a Batman episode.
Yeah, right. Wah, 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 wah. So anyway, that's on Canopy. Then over on Crackle, I watched Memory: The Origins of Alien from 2019. This is just a documentary, kind of a talking head documentary about what's his face, Dan O'Bannon, who wrote Alien, and kind of some of his influences. And they kind of talked a little bit about Geiger.
Yeah, Geiger.
And it was kind of interesting to hear some of the things and like where some of their influences came from and all that stuff. And some of the things that they lifted from stuff. There's apparently, like, I never knew this, but there's the chestburster scene. There's an old 50s EC comic where there's like these guys on a ship out in sea, and it must be like Navy or something. And they find some eggs, and something comes out and infects one of the guys. And then the last panel is his chest bursting open and this little, like, alien coming out and running off the ship.
Nice.
I was like, Alien straight deadlifted that right out of the comics.
It is fascinating just how big of an impact that EC Comics had, especially to the sort of 70s going into 80s. Obviously, then there's like even more direct homages like Creepshow.
Yeah, and there was a lot of stuff like the 50s and 60s, B movies and all that stuff, and a lot of that kind of contributed to like the imagery and the story and all that stuff. I think that Dan O'Bannon has passed away because it was his wife that was on this on this video talking about him, and how she actually still has a lot of his like unfinished works and stuff in her house. And so it's kind of cool. He's got a bunch of there's all this stuff that we haven't seen from Dan O'Bannon. It was interesting. It felt a lot like a DVD extra documentary, but it was kind of cool to see a little bit of the influence that went into Alien. The reason I mentioned that straight lifting the chestburster scene was because someone on the documentary said that that Dan O'Bannon was quoted as saying something about, "I don't steal from just anybody. I steal from everybody."
Yeah, as the saying goes, if you're going to steal like an artist and steal from the best.
Yeah. Because isn't there another saying? It's like a good artist borrows, a great artist steals, or something like that.
Something like that.
So, yeah, Interesting documentary. Nothing great. Nothing high production value or anything. It was just kind of, like I said, it felt like kind of a DVD extra type thing. But it's streaming for free on Crackle.
Nice.
Then back to HBO Max. I introduced my daughter to The Shadow from 1994.
Hey, we talked about this one before. I watched it a while back.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin as The Shadow. And this is such a cool, fun little movie because it just has that awesome, like, 30s feel to it. Even the score by Jerry Goldsmith has a real 30s flair to it.
Yeah.
And it, just he's this guy who has the ability to cloud people's minds so they don't know he's there. And then a descendant of Genghis Khan learns from the same master and ends up killing him. So it's one of those where it's like, ooh, we both had the same teacher, but you're a bad guy. And action ensues. And Ian McKellen builds a bomb.
And they waste a perfectly good Tim Curry.
But he had a good scene inside that where he tries to drown the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Curry's great. Really cool movie. This came in like the that era right behind Batman Begins, because this came out in 94. And
the post Batman
or not Batman Begins. The post Batman thing where, we got all sorts of 30s era comics and stuff like The Shadow and Rocketeer and Dick Tracy and all. Well,
even though Rocketeer was just like a regular, even Rocketeer was made in the 80s. It just was meant to ape that style.
Oh, that was earlier, wasn't it?
The comic was just like an 80s comic.
Oh, yeah, because I was going to say the movie came out after Batman. Because that was in the 90s, right? Yeah,
the comic first came out, was just designed to be taking place in that Golden Age style.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was still like the pulpy feel, you're right, where it's like, even though it was a more recent comic, it was a pulpy feel. Anyway, after introducing my daughter to that one, that was my youngest daughter, we watched another Jerry Goldsmith scored movie together on HBO Max called Planet of the Apes from 1968.
Nice.
Get your filthy paws off, you damn dirty ape. And of course, after this was Elsa that I watched this with, and we've been going through The Simpsons, and we're up to season 10. Well, there's a lot of times where movie references show up on Simpsons because that's what they do a lot. And so after watching this movie, we went back to the season 7 clip, and I showed her I re-showed her the Planet of the Apes musical. So
I love legitimate theater.
Gosh, we both enjoyed this movie. I told her there's like 4 or 5 more movies to watch.
It holds up, and I still think, if you don't know going ahead of time, it's a solid twist to this day.
Yeah, I kept telling her, I said, I know what's going to happen. She goes, don't spoil it for me.
And even all these years later, the makeup is still really good and still really fun.
It is. It does look really good. The masks are a little rubbery when they talk, but overall, yeah, it does look good.
But they still really add a lot of character, and it definitely takes a lot of sometimes it's hard to act through makeup, and I think all the performers in this one do a great job.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows this one. Basic premise. Some astronauts are going to explore deep space. They go through like kind of time warp. So like when they're trying to get back to Earth, they're like 3,000 years into the future, even though it's only been a couple months for them. And then they land on a planet of apes.
Charlton Heston. A planet where apes evolve from men?
That's preposterous. Let me get my guns.
Yes.
No, and of course the ending is different than from the book because they brought Rod Serling in to write the ending. And I don't know if he did more of the screenplay too, but he was involved. He was the one who came up with the twist ending for this movie.
Of course.
I mean,
who else, right? It makes perfect sense once you hear it was him.
Who else in the 60s would come up with that twist? Right? But I think the whole series is on HBO Max, so there you go. Then the next movie I watched on HBO Max was Reminiscence from 2021.
Yes. I saw lots of commercials for this one.
Unfortunately, this one's... I watched it on the last day it was available, so you might have to wait a couple months to watch it on HBO Max again. This is Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson and Thandie Newton. Is it Thandie? I know it's spelled Thandie, but is it Thandie or Tandy?
I forget the correct pronunciation. I want to say Tandy, but Miss Newton.
Miss Newton. Miss Newton, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful actress. I just don't know how to pronounce her first name. Anyway, this is kind of set in the future where like it's in Miami and there's walls built around the city because the waters have risen to a point where like it's going to flood the city if they didn't build the walls.
So 2022.
Yeah, there you go. But it just kind of, the elites versus the not elites and Hugh Jackman's just getting by. Like, he's got a machine that you can relive memories. And so then he gets this beautiful girl comes in, Rebecca Ferguson. And she wants to relive a memory to find where she placed her lost keys. And then the story just goes down a rabbit hole and it turns into like this noir type thing. And I didn't think it was anything spectacular, but it's a really cool premise. And it has, like it's set in more modern, even futuristic times, but like, because of all the, memory and all that stuff, but it had this noir feel to it. He's trying to find this girl, this femme fatale.
Does he eventually realize that he has to get his ass to Mars?
No, that was...
Come on, it's got memory machines. It's got...
He might have already been there.
Who knows?
No, but it was, like I said, I'd give it if you want something just interesting to watch on a Sunday afternoon, pop it on when it comes back to HBO Max. And then the final movie I watched these last 2 weeks was dun 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 dun. I watched the A-Team.
Pride and Prejudice.
Yes. And zombies.
Yes.
I watched the A-Team from 2010. The Joe Carnahan movie. I watched this movie and I realized I'm a Joe Carnahan fan. You got Narc and the A-Team and one I'm not thinking of that I did enjoy, but then he just did Boss Level on Amazon Prime and I loved that. Stretch was another one he did. I'm a fan of Joe Carnahan's. And I watched the extended cut of this because there's the theatrical and the extended cut on Amazon Prime. I have not seen this since I saw it in the theater. It is a group of mercenaries, basically. It's based on the old TV show from the 80s. And they go out and do jobs that no one else can do, yada, yada, yada. They're all rangers or whatever. And in this movie, they get framed for something. And it's kind of, I guess what it is apparently the opening of the show was always, they were framed for this. Now they're trying to clear their name. Well, this movie is basically them getting framed, so then at the end of the movie, it's like, oh yeah, they're still actually, wanted by the law, but they're out doing their thing. I really wish we could have got a sequel because you got Liam Neeson playing Hannibal and then Bradley Cooper playing the Face Man. And Charlton Copley was great as
wasn't he the crazy one?
Yeah, he's I don't remember the character's name, but he's just the absolute crazy one, and he's like a pilot, and like the best pilot and everything, and but he's completely nuts. And Charlton Copley is great in this movie.
It's fun whenever he shows up.
And then I can't remember, something Rampage Jackson played. Played B.A. Baracus, who was played by Mr. T, of course, in the original.
Yeah, how does he do compared to Mr. T? It's hard to beat Mr. T.
It is hard to beat Mr. T. I think that they did a good job because Mr. T they gave him a mohawk in this movie. So they gave him the part because he's a big black guy with a mohawk. But they didn't go with, trying to imitate Mr. T with like the gold chains and the earrings and all that stuff. He was his own character, but like there was nods to Mr. T in it. Like there's a beginning where they're like introducing the characters. You have him like raise one fist to go punch someone, and it freeze frames on one fist and it says pity, and then he punches, and then it goes up on the on the second fist, and it comes up in freeze frames, and there's a tattoo that says "fool," and then it goes into the
Nice.
little nods like that, which are pretty fun. And this movie, the reason I watched it again is because I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about it, and they're like, and they were like, this is kind of like the Fast and the Furious, where you just go for the ride. And I kind of agree. If you go in just expecting just ridiculous and just let it wash over you, this is just a fun movie because the characters are so great, and like each character, like they really, like all the actors, Liam Neeson, Copley, and Bradley Cooper, all bring something to the table with this, and it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
So I'd recommend it. Just remember to go into it kind of like a Fast and Furious movie, where you're going to see stuff like them falling out of the sky in a tank that's got parachutes on it, and they use the cannon to steer the tank in the sky. So
nice.
They fly a tank in this, essentially. So
as you do.
That's the kind of movie this is.
I'm here for it.
But that's what I've been watching, and that's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I have. I tried to beat my record of 30. I got to 28 this time. So.
Oh, sweet mother! You watched a lot.
So I'll try and be fast. First, I watched Malignant. We talked about Malignant. I love the goofiness. I'm all for the trash. Just like, give it to me. I want to see a Malignant 2.
It's one of my favorite horror movies I've seen in a while, just because it was such goofy, exploitative fun.
Excuse me. Next, I watched Porco Rosso, the Studio Ghibli. This is about like a pig who is also like an amazing flying ace, like post World War I, 1930s Europe, where they're all about trying to help fight against air pirates and working together while also being kind of a dashing rogue. It's fun. Nice. Studio Ghibli. If you like airplanes, it's great. Beautiful animation, of course. It's a good one, and the dub had Michael Keaton as the main character.
Oh, cool.
Next, I saw Ocean Waves. This was another Studio Ghibli one. This one was originally made as a TV movie, and it's the only one that's kind of never received an official dub. So this one I watched subbed, and it's about like a man going back to like his high school reunion and kind of contemplating his relationship with this one girl and how kind of weird it was. It's short, only like an hour long. It's obviously not Studio Ghibli's best work, but I guess I'd recommend that one if you're a completionist, if you just want to watch all of them.
Cool.
Next, I watched Swoon, which was kind of based off of the true crime case of these two guys who were two guys who were a gay couple who also in like the 1920s, and they decided to murder someone just to see if they could get away with it.
I mean, like you do on a weekend.
Yeah, as you do. And that same case was also kind of famously used before, like in Rope, directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
That's one of the Hitchcock I haven't seen yet.
That one's a good one. It definitely feels more based on a play, so it's definitely designed to feel like a play, because the idea it's supposed to be like one long unending shot, even though it's like there's like hidden edits.
Oh, okay.
Because like the maximum amount of film they could do was like at 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
So they use a lot of interesting hidden edits. That was fun.
Kind of like 1917.
Yep, and this one is definitely just all about more focused on their relationship and kind of what happens to them in the result of this crime and how it affects their relationship. So interesting to sort of view the same basic idea from a very different angle. Next, I saw Pom Poko, which this is the Studio Ghibli one with the raccoons with big balls. Because this is... So Pom Poko, it's about a group of raccoons, or a raccoon-like creature called a tanuki, which is sort of what's called a raccoon dog in Japan, and how they're to realize that, hey, wait a minute, all these humans are starting to develop this land that's our forest. We gotta fight against them. And some of the Japanese legends about tanuki is that they can shapeshift, and that sometimes they can use their testicles to do strange shapeshifting things. So some of it involves like the more... I guess, militaristic group of them try and attack people and then, like, try and crush them with their giant testicles that can shift shapes and shift size. But it's
definitely
really...
a kid's movie, right?
Really, it is, for the most part, really... Because it's not sexualized in any sort of way, but some of it is just... That's kind of the Japanese context of it more, so it can feel pretty silly to some to Western audiences like us. But yeah, definitely solid environmental film. If you like Japanese folklore, it's a fun, interesting one. People don't talk about it as much as some of the other Studio Ghibli ones. I definitely liked it. It was weird. It was unique. And for those who know your Super Mario Brothers 3, you can always there's always the Tanuki suit, which helps you fly, and then you can turn into a statue. So it's based off of this same legend.
Why didn't Mario have giant balls?
That would have made the game too good. Only you could...
Instead of like using, like a tail or something, just like whack the enemies with your balls.
Yep. Crush them with your giant balls. And bounce on them. Next, I watched The Absent-Minded Professor, starring Fred MacMurray, and this was remade as a movie you may have heard of called Flubber. So this is kind of interesting. Williams. Yeah, so this is the first version of that, He's the professor who's working on science stuff, but he's also just, he forgets about his own wedding. This is like the third time they've tried to get married. It's like, and he's sort of a long-suffering girlfriend. And then when he invents this sort of crazy thing, he uses it to help, help the basketball team win a big game. And he uses it to help his car to teach his car to make a flying car. And except this time his car is a Model T.
Chitty chitty bang bang.
Kind of. And so, but then a lot of it is like the original, like the remake stays for the most part pretty faithful to the point where it's like there is a lot of the same beats. So there's like the big basketball scene, and then there's like the confrontation against the bad guy who's trying to be like a big donor to the college or whatever. Except it does not involve Christopher McDonald eating flubber and then farting it out.
Was Fred MacMurray just like America's dad during the 50s and 60s?
Yeah, he keeps that Disney money.
Other than Double Indemnity.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of broke character there.
A story has it that like apparently he also did, was in the Billy Wilder movie The Apartment, and he plays like a philandering boss, kind of a jerk type character.
Oh, I guess I don't remember him that. I need to revisit that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, so that one, and apparently like people would stop him on the street after that movie. Was like, how could you? You're supposed to be a great dad, because it was working My Three Sons. So
I am an actor.
Mm-hmm. Next, I watched Ouija, Origin of Evil, which is technically like a prequel to the first movie, Ouija. But I watched this one because it was directed by Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
And Mike Flanagan has done some good stuff, and I hadn't seen this one. So it does, on this one, basically this is about, a woman who's like she does seances and readings for people to help contact their loved ones, but also, it's a scam. But then what happens when one of her daughters gets a Ouija board and bad things start happening?
Were Ouija boards like not much of a fad anymore when you're growing up?
Yeah.
Okay, because when I was growing up, it was in the 80s, and I never used one, but it was always like, ooh, the Ouija board, like just like
Mm-hmm.
it was this forbidden game.
Yeah, and it's been around since like the late 1800s. It's all a scam.
Yeah, it's for some reason it like just became this. It felt like it was kind of big again in the 80s.
Comes and goes. Maybe with the Satanic Panic, people were using it.
Yeah, because the 80s was also when we 80s going into the early 90s was when we got a lot of the those kids that play D&D, they're into Satan, and
it helps you summon the demons.
Yeah, you're summoning demons, and this is the devil's work. And so I lived through the Satanic Panic in the 80s. It was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Next up, of course, is the classic Disney TV film, Mr. Boogedy.
I've never seen this.
It's about if it's on. Sometimes you dig through the weirder parts of Disney Plus and you find some gold. So this movie is only like 45 minutes. A TV movie about like a family who run like a practical joke store, and they move to this small town called like Lucifer Falls. Like, watch out, in this house you could be contacted by the ghost of this evil like pilgrim named Mr. Boogedy, and he'll try to take over you or like scare you or whatever. So this family moves in, and then the daughter is like, it's a mom, dad, a daughter, and like two younger sons. And they're always making like these dumb jokes and just like joking around for like these silly pranks, and their daughter's not having any of it. But then, find out that the story of Mr. Boogedy is real, and he's trying to get inside their house. So it turns out, like, hidden in the basement is the ghost of a little boy who just wants to be reunited with his ghost mom, and they do get reunited.
And it feels
and everything is happy there, and then they decide to stay in Lucifer Falls and open their joke store, and everything's great.
They said his name 5 times in the mirror. Mr.
Yep.
Boogedy, Mr. Boogedy.
And then I watched, this one's a little different. This one was a concert film, Happier Than Ever, with Billie Eilish, where she goes through her entire latest album of the same name. This one was interesting because it had some animated kind of interludes between the songs. But it was a cool setup because all the songs they were filmed in front of, at the Hollywood Bowl, which is an incredible, historic, great venue there, but without an audience. So it's weird to see her performing with her band in the Hollywood Bowl, but then, like, every once in a while, you get some long shots, and it's just weirdly empty.
Yeah, that'd be almost like a practice session or something.
Mm-hmm. And it was actually directed by Robert Rodriguez, so that's kind of cool, too.
Are you a fan of Billie Eilish?
I definitely have a growing appreciation of her.
Okay. I've not been a huge fan of her stuff. I can see why people are, but I think she's not for me.
But yeah, definitely an interesting use of the form of a concert film. I always appreciate them because I like music.
But nothing tops Stop Making Sense.
It really is hard to beat. Next, well, the best part about Mr. Boogedy, there's a sequel.
Oh, man.
Bride of Boogedy.
Boogedy 2? Electric Boogedy Doo?
Well, this one, like, the joke store is fine. Everything's going great. And, but then they find out, Mr. Boogedy could come back. And because they want to have, like, this town Halloween carnival or whatever. But there's one grumpy guy who doesn't want the town to have it because he doesn't like the joke store. He's like, you guys don't belong here. And I forget, just can't remember the actor's name. It's the guy who plays the dad in Schitt's Creek.
Oh, Eugene Levy.
Yes, Eugene Levy plays the grumpy guy.
Yes.
Still saying my bros, like, what are you doing in this movie? You're better than this.
When are these from?
Like mid to late 80s TV movies. So, and this one is double the length. This one was a whole 90 minutes. So,
wow. Yeah, because Eugene Levy was big in the 80s.
I don't know how he ended up in this one.
Weird.
But yeah, so he was great in Bride of Boogedy. And of course, Mr. Boogedy comes back and he tries to take a wife. In this one, like, he possesses the main dad of the main family. And also Vincent Schiavelli, the character actor, is in here because, I don't know, he was around and they needed the guy to look vaguely spooky and be a gravedigger.
Oh, the Get Off My Train.
Yes.
Guy from Ghost.
Yes.
Get off my train.
Who, of course, also appeared as one of the bad guys in Batman Returns. But yeah, Vincent Schiavelli, of course, he's in this movie playing this type of character because, you know, he's got that very specific face.
He does. He's very suited for certain roles.
So it's always fun to see when he shows up in anything, even Bride of Boogedy.
Bride of Boogedy.
So check those out, I guess. Next, I watched Venom. I'd never seen it, and at least it's not super long. How familiar are you with Venom, the character? You read comic books in the 90s, so I assume very familiar.
Slightly, because I was more of a DC guy. Mm-hmm. I did read some Marvel comics, but I grew up mostly on DC. Mm-hmm. But I always liked Venom, and I mean, I just know that it's a symbiote from space, from Secret Wars, and Spider-Man ended up with him as his suit for a while, and then they separated, and he went to Eddie Brock, and because he's like this killer thing, and mm-hmm. and now he's actually like a space knight in the comics.
Yeah, now he's more of an anti-hero.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to do that with Tom Hardy playing Eddie Brock, and this is just a movie where Tom Hardy gets to be weird and occasionally talks to a special effect.
Yeah, I liked this movie.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fun enough on its own. Like, it's not anything great, but it's still fun because, you know.
I liked what he did as Eddie Brock. Because when he was first cast as Eddie Brock, I was like, really? He's going to be the reporter guy, like, mm-hmm. whatever. And it's like, I like the way they wrote him in this movie.
Like these weird tics and mannerisms and just like being
Yeah.
really tired and sweaty all the time.
I'm excited to see the Venom Carnage movie with Woody Harrelson as Cletus.
Yeah. And I do like the relationship. They really emphasize the relationship between Venom and Eddie, and that's really what made the film work. It's like, all right, you can only eat bad people. Don't eat this person. Don't eat this.
Yeah, I know. I had a good time watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got its problems, but I thought it was kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see Tom Hardy's Venom and Woody Harrelson's Carnage show up in like the Spider-Man movies over in the MCU.
That'd be crazy. Next, I watched The Wild One. The Marlon Brando motorcycle movie.
Yeah, I think
it
I've
also
seen
had
this
a
one.
pretty early role of Lee Marvin playing another motorcycle gang member or a rival gang. It's solid. Brando is still pretty cool looking, even though if it's from the 50s. And some of it is a solid movie. Great acting, great characters. This one holds up pretty well.
Before he went batshit crazy.
Mm-hmm. Before he moved to his island of Dr. Moreau.
Or there's a crazy man living on that. That's not a character he's playing. That's
and he really is that pale.
Right.
Next, I watched The Swarm, which is a 1978 disaster film starring Michael Caine.
Michael Caine?
Yes, as the scientist who studies bees. And then this swarm of killer bees is growing across the American Southwest. And they do things
Nicolas
like...
Cage runs across goes, the bees!
Yeah, I guess you could call this movie Not the Bees. So they do things like try and use, bee repellent or anything, and nothing works. Where they try and use flamethrowers, nothing works against these bees. And the bees are so evil, they even, derail a train with tons of people on it, and it explodes in the best 1970s miniatures effects money can buy.
That sounds amazing.
And then they find out that this military siren that they've been using turns out actually can attract the bees because it sounds similar to a mating call. And they realize that they can use it to defeat the bees. So they take this mating call over the ocean in the Gulf of Mexico, and they pour a bunch of oil in the Gulf of Mexico and then light it on fire to kill all the bees.
This sounds like one I need to watch with Elsa.
Yeah, it's long. It's 2.5 hours, but it's got... I wouldn't necessarily think it justifies its length, but it's dumb, fun effects, lots of bees. I still think it would have been amazing if the bee swarm cloud just formed a middle finger at one point or just something stupid like that.
Are they giant bees or are these normal sized bees?
These are normal sized bees. They're just killer bees.
I love killer insect movies.
Mm-hmm.
Of the giant or the small variety.
Yes.
I'm a fan.
Animal attack movies. I'd also recommend Day of the Animals for a very silliness.
Yes.
Because that one has shirtless Leslie Nielsen fighting a bear. Next, I watched Major League, because, I like baseball movies, and I'd never seen this one.
How did this one hold up for you? It's been a long time. I used to love this one back in the day, but it's been a long time I've seen it, and I don't know how it holds up.
A lot of it is pretty solid. I mean, obviously, they did finally change the name of the Cleveland Indians to the Cleveland Guardians. But then some parts, like the voodoo practice it could have been better handled. But overall, David Haybert, I thought, was good. The movie kind of falls apart, at least part of it falls apart towards the end when, the rich player's wife sleeps with Charlie Sheen for no particular reason.
Yeah, some of the
that character motivation didn't quite work.
The outside of the baseball stuff is, if I remember correctly, is not the greatest stuff. It's the baseball stuff and the characters there that are fun.
James Gammon was great.
Wesley Snipes is Willie Mays Hayes.
Yeah, that was fun. How he always keeps these gloves for all the bases he's going to steal.
Tacked up on his wall at home.
Yes.
And then, of course, Charlie Sheen is the Wild Thing. And little did we know we knew he was a Wild Thing back then.
Yep.
Even.
Next, I watched Alice, Sweet Alice, also called Communion. It's a kind of thriller slasher film where a young woman is blamed for her sister's death when her sister was killed during her first communion or something. It's lots of Catholic imagery and then a weird landlord guy. So there's kind of a mystery, do you think this teenager is a killer or is it someone else? So that kind of keeps us guessing. Very reminiscent. They said it was heavily influenced by the movie Don't Look Now, by Nicholas Roeg.
Yeah, I've seen that one. I haven't seen Alice, Sweet Alice yet.
Yeah, so in the sort of the editing, the sense of what's quite real, what's quite not real, overall pretty solid. Not quite as cheesy slasher film, but not too bad. I'd say it's interesting.
This one's on my watch list. I haven't seen this one yet.
Mm-hmm. Next, I watched Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man.
Yes.
This is my favorite Abbott and Costello in the Meet the series.
We have talked about this one a lot, so probably don't have to say a lot, but that boxing scene.
Yes, and just even the other gags where they're just like playing cards and there's like the Costello like kind of swings his arm behind him. It's like, want to make sure you weren't behind me cheating or anything. Or just
yeah. It really is good. That one is one of the best of those Meet the Monsters movies.
Mm-hmm. Next, I continued my journey into the TPMCU, the Tyler Perry's Medea Cinematic Universe, with Tyler Perry's I Can Do Battle by Myself, starring Taraji P. Henson. And she gives a great performance in this one as more of a dramatic role with some comedic elements. Medea's in it, but then like she's barely in it, so that's kind of disappointing. Come on, I'm here for Medea.
I mean, you can't have a Medea movie where Medea is just a cameo, right?
Yeah, she has a small role, but she's still in it. But come on, more Medea. That's all I'm saying. I want to see, at least Medea goes to jail. I actually had her go to jail and see what she did there.
I want to see the other cut of Star Trek 2009, where instead of Tyler Perry, it's Medea on the council.
Yes. Tyler Perry's Medea's Star Trek. Next, I watched The Atomic Submarine. Pretty solid 1950s sci-fi about an atomic submarine that goes kind of north of the Arctic Circle to realize, hey, there's been weird stuff going on. We've been losing contact with some ships there. And then they find out, oh no, there's aliens. So they realize that they get inside the alien ship and they have to work to destroy the aliens before they can leave and try and go start the invasion as was more of a scouting group.
Cool.
Kind of reminded me a little bit of The Thing from Another World, except The Thing from Another World is probably a lot better.
I mean, that's a great movie.
Mm-hmm. Next, I watched Rookie of the Year. Did you see this one?
I did. I
didn't realize.
This is the one with Stern, right? Daniel Stern?
Yeah, he also directed this one.
Okay, because I'm thinking, is this is the one where he gets like the kid injures his arm and then he can pitch really fast or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, this has got the great line, "Funky butt lovin'."
Yes.
Funky butt lovin'?
That was even in the trailer. I looked up the trailer for this one. I like how, this one, then he ends up joining the plane for the Cubs.
Yeah.
And helping them go all the way. But I really like how this one still emphasizes the fact that he's still a kid. He's still 12. So he still wants to do the things that kids do, despite all the fame and all the fortune. And also has, veteran pitcher Gary Busey, who was actually pretty charming in this one.
Before he had his motorcycle accident, he had some good roles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even after, it was like, yeah, we'll take crazy Gary Busey.
Are you saying that Ginger Dead Man is not a masterpiece?
I guess I haven't seen that one. I kind of steered clear of that one.
It's Gary Busey as a gingerbread man. Come on.
I mean, I guess that's kind of enticing.
That's must see. That's must see movies right there.
How did this one hold up? I haven't seen this one since it came out in the 90s.
Overall, this was pretty solid, and even as like the goofy side character, Daniel Stern is like this pitching coach who's just a goofball.
Yeah, I might have to show that one to the girls because I remember liking that one when I was in. I think it came out.
And I really like how they kind of resolved this situation with his mom, because his mom always says like, your father, he died early or whatever, and he was a famous baseball player. But then you find out that, she never really knew who the father was. It was just some guy who left. And then, he says, she says, I never wanted to tell you this. Like, it's okay, Mom. Grandma told me when I was 8. I've always known. It's like, oh, so why didn't you tell me? Because I liked hearing your stories.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, yeah. So that's really sweet scene. Yep. Good movie. Baseball stuff. Next, I watched Shaun the Sheep, Farmageddon.
Yeah.
I really love Shaun the Sheep movies because they're very smart. They're be able to do everything without dialogue at all, which is hard to do. Lots of great visual storytelling, fun gags, and this one had some fun jokes for parents too.
And they're really pure and sweet.
Yeah, they're very sincere and genuine. And it seems like the people make them really have a lot of fun with the gags, like the part where, like, Sean finds a little alien friend. They have to work together so the little alien friend can get back on a spaceship and go home.
Yeah,
so they even make a couple ET jokes, and then they even do. And at one point, there's like an evil government lady who's after the alien, and the evil government lady, like, when she sort of goes into her special office, she has to whistle the X-Files theme to get inside.
It's such a cute movie. We watched this with our daughters, and we all really enjoyed this one.
Yep, and just then the whole plot with the farmer who just wants to buy a better combine, so he sets up this whole amusement park called Farmageddon to capitalize on the alien sightings, and it's just dumb and silly. Next, I watched When a Stranger Calls from 1979.
I was going to say 79 with Carol Kane, right?
And Charles Durning.
That's right. This one I watched a couple years ago, and because I think I saw it when I was younger, and I didn't remember all of it. I forgot that this turned into like a police chase, like the last half of the movie.
Yeah, really sweaty Charles Durning chasing after a guy.
Yeah, because I was like, you picture this as just her being terrorized in the house for the whole movie, and you go, oh no, that's only like the first half of the movie.
Yeah, and because like the first 30 minutes was originally like a short film just called The Sitter, and it ended with the door opening.
Yeah.
With the surprise Charles Durning.
It's a good movie.
It doesn't quite work after that point. It kind of falls apart in the middle, but the beginning and the ending have some great solid suspense sequences.
Yeah, and maybe that's why, because I swear that I saw this when I was younger, and maybe that's why I didn't remember all the Charles Durning stuff, because it's the in the house getting the calls stuff that's really suspenseful. Because then they remade this in like the 90s or 2000s or something like that.
Well, there was a sequel called When a Stranger Calls Back in the 90s. It's not very good, and that one's kind of funny because in that one, like, you find out that this new killer is like a ventriloquist. So then it shows him like dressed up in like a bodysuit just to like blend in with the walls and then talk or whatever.
Nice.
Next, I watched The Sword in the Stone, the Disney film, and it's not that great, but it is only like an hour. So there's that. Good enough distraction for your kids.
All right.
And like The Sword in the Stone really only shows up in like the last 10 minutes.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, most of it is like Arthur and Merlin, and like Merlin turned on Arthur into weird animals, like an ant or a squirrel or a fish
or something like it.
He turns into a fish, almost gets eaten, turns into a squirrel. A lady squirrel wants to like mate with him, turns into a bird. Then he meets another evil, and he meets a witch, and then there's a wizard duel that's kind of fun.
I think we did watch this with the girls when they were younger. We have all of the Blu-rays of all of the, Disney movies, animated films. So
then I watched Hedwig and the Angry Inch after you talked about it, and I hadn't seen it, so I thought, hey, this one was fun. Solid soundtrack and a good story too.
Yeah, I love the music. The one where she's in the trailer with the "Put on My Wig" and all that stuff. That's such a great song. Yeah, there's a couple really great songs in there.
Yeah, and Origin of Love is legit. I really like the animated sequence for that one too.
Yeah, that was the other one that I really enjoyed. I just really like that song. Like I put that one, and I can't remember the title of that song that they do, like the Everybody Now. But those two songs I actually put into my Spotify rotation.
Nice.
So did you like the movie overall?
Yeah, solid, cool, and it's pretty neat that it was a very queer story, even in 2001, that I had not heard of or seen before. But I did see that there was a Riverdale episode about it where a lot of the characters dressed up in Hedwig costumes.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I saw this one. I don't even know how I heard about it or what. Like when I was in college when this came out, and I saw it at the Bijou Theater when it came out, and I really enjoyed it. So
next, I watched Ringu, the original Japanese version of The Ring, which I had not ever seen before.
Nice.
And I kind of knew, I guess, I had the movie spoiled for me long ago, but the whole part where, crawling out of the TV and stuff, Sadako and all that jazz about how the only way is to, make a copy of the tape. But overall, it's a pretty solid film, I think, and has a pretty dark ending, but I enjoyed it for what it was. very well made, and I can understand why the idea caught on, because it is a pretty interesting, unique idea.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen the Japanese version either. So
All I'm saying is that, Sadako's curse you think would eventually run out like maybe 2006 or 2007 when people just get rid of their VCRs.
what's I don't have a VCR anymore. Toss it in the trash.
Yeah, exactly. Next I saw Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme, JCVD.
Nice.
And this one we do get some buns. Some of those good JCVD buns.
And I've watched a couple where he doesn't do the splits.
He does the splits in this one, thank God. And it's arguably the best part of the movie. Because he gets up, he does the splits while he's like hiding in this building, and then like a bad guy comes beneath him, and then you just see him like hold a knife and go down and like jump from the splits. It's so great. It's like, yes, that's what we wanted.
I haven't seen this one since I was a kid. I watched in the 80s. I watched every one of his movies, and I saw Bloodsport and Kickboxer like a million times.
Nice.
I had them both recorded off of TV.
Mm-hmm.
Cyborg, I watched once or twice when I was a kid.
It's like, it was a situation like I kind of knew what I was into right at the beginning when the opening credits. I just saw Golan and Globus. Like, oh, okay.
Yep. Gotta love the Golden Globus. Gotta love canon films.
Mm-hmm.
They are a weird point in the history of film.
Yes. Even Superman 4.
Yes.
Next I watched Ella Enchanted. This one I had not seen in a long time, but we did have it on DVD, so it was fun to revisit this. And I like all sort of the weird anachronistic jokes, like going to the opening of the shopping mall, singing Queen at like a wedding, like having like a medieval type escalator. It was fun. Anne Hathaway, of course, is great. The narrator with Eric Idle is great. And then, of course, Hugh Dancy as Prince Char is great. But I just kept imagining, like, what if this takes place in the same universe as this character from Hannibal? And that made me laugh. And then lastly, I forgot just how much fun Cary Elwes was as Uncle Edgar the villain. And he is just, like, chewing as much scenery as he possibly can. And it's great.
I have never seen this movie.
I think it'd be fun with your kids to probably get a kick out of it. Even if they were like 7 or 8, it'd be probably the best time to watch it. But I think now they still enjoy it.
I might have to check it out.
There's some fun kind of jokes about fairy tales and kind of making fun of these fairy tale type tropes.
Cool.
Next, I watched Schizoid, which had a very young... it was weird to see a very young Christopher Lloyd in this one.
Oh, sweet. It was
kind of a creepy... No, he's kind of a creepy guy. It's sort of a random side character. But the idea is that, like, a psychiatrist and his psychiatrist played by Klaus Kinski, so yeah, and like
wait,
apparently
Klaus Kinski and Christopher Lloyd together. I want to see this.
They don't have any scenes together, which is a shame. But
oh, dang it!
So then it's like the psychiatrist notices that like people in his therapy group notice like, oh no, 2 of my members have been murdered. Someone's going after them, and someone else is receiving like creepy letters. Like serial killer type letters with the cutout words. Nice. And it's okay. It doesn't quite work, but it's as a curiosity piece, it's kind of interesting.
Oh.
And the killer kills with like fabric scissors. So there's nice. That. And last, I watched The Stepfather with Terry O'Quinn.
Awesome.
In a very memorable role. He's great. He's so good in this.
Yeah, I like this one a lot.
Yep. Basic premise. Beginning of the movie, you see a man like with blood on his hands, or like sort of just kind of washing his hands, taking a shower, shaving, giving himself a haircut so he looks different. And then you see him kind of like put on a sweater, tie, and he just leaves his house. And then you realize like, oh no, this guy just killed his entire family. He's now disappearing.
He's like walking past all the dead bodies as
yeah, like whistling. It's a great opening.
It really is. Then he goes and finds another family to kill.
Yep, and then cut to a year later, he's married to someone else, a widow and her daughter, and then like apparently his whole deal is that like he lives with the family until they break his expectations of this perfect nuclear family, and then he kills them and just kind of moves on to a new family. And towards the end of the film, you realize like, oh, he's starting to do it again. He's starting to crack. And then like my favorite, and like towards the end, he realizes like his wife says like, oh, where have you been? I tried to call your office and you weren't there. They said you quit days ago. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that. He opens the home, like he answers the phone, says the wrong last name and says, wait a minute, who am I here? Like, yo, you're Jerry. You're Jerry Blake. It's like, oh yeah, sorry, honey. And then he starts attacking her.
Yeah. It's a crazy film. It's good.
Terry O'Quinn is really good at sort of nailing that difference between like, Mr. Normal and Mr. Crazy. It's a hard line. It's a hard thing to do, but then still be like just slightly creepy even when you're at your most normal.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Solid film. That's all of my watched, and I'm excited because now we're slowly getting into October, so we can go crazy and just watch all the scary stuff.
Yes, and then
because I noticed the entire Nightmare on Elm Street series is on HBO Max, so I know what I'm going to dig into.
Nice, and then all those episodes will get posted like in November and December because I'm always like a few weeks behind posting.
It's the thought that counts.
That's okay. But that's what we watch. This is going a little long, so we'll just what are you watching next?
Probably another Studio Ghibli film. I still got some to go on that one.
All right. I don't have anything really on my plate, but the next movie on my real good watch list is Doctor Strangelove, and I haven't seen that in a long time, so I'm excited to watch it again.
Nice.
So,
gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
All-time classic.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at AwesomeKM.
And I'm at Noah_Saturn. That is spelled Satern.
We're on Instagram at We Don't Know to Watch. You can email us, we don't know what to watch at gmail.com. And like, subscribe, email us, whatever you want to do. And comment below. And until next time, keep watching.
Yep. Until next time, who am I here? I'm your dad.